Hey, good morning, everybody. Josh here. Welcome to Morning Meditations with Josh and Friends. We are currently in part 2 of our study on the book of Judges. And as I explained yesterday, Judges is a book that basically categorizes the demise of Israel, the moral and spiritual demise of Israel, with this pattern of the people not following God, drifting from God, and assimilating into the cultures of the Canaanite people who were in the land, and then them taking on their practices and ultimately worshiping their gods. And God's removal of his protection and presence from the nation of Israel, allowing them to be conquered and so on. And then the people saying, "Oh no, God, help us." And then God sending a redeemer, the judge, hence the name Book of Judges. Yesterday we talked about Othniel. And so we're picking up today with the very next judge, and his name is Ehud. Now, Ehud is a Benjamite, and he's from the tribe of Benjamin. Interesting note about that is Ehud is a left-handed warrior. The name Benjamin means son of my right hand, and so ironically, for whatever reason, Benjamites were renowned for being left-handed or ambidextrous warriors, which gave them a slight advantage over their enemy on the battlefield. But anyway, Ehud is this left-handed warrior who God raises up after he hears the cry of the Israelites, who after being liberated by Othniel, get conquered by Eglon, the king of Moab, who kind of gangs up on Israel with the Ammonites and the Amalekites to take over and subdue them. And so Israel's captive under King Eglon for 18 years. And the people cry out, "God, help us, sorry, we drifted from you." And so God raises up Ehud. Now, Ehud is a pretty interesting cat because we see that he is a thinker. He's strategic. And what he does in order to liberate the people is he builds this very short sword, about a cubit long, which is about the size of a forearm, so approximately 21 inches, and he straps it to his right thigh, and he puts his garments on over it. And he takes an offering to King Eglon. And so when he comes into the presence of the authorities, they kind of pat him down and frisk him. They don't find anything, and he's able to move on to the king's presence, where he presents this offering to him, and he kind of sends everybody away, and the king accepts the offering. And then as Ehud is leaving, he says, "Oh yeah, I forgot one more thing. I have a secret message for you." So King Eglon, being interested, which by the way he's described as a very fat man, he sends his people out to receive this secret message from Ehud. And so now they're just alone in the upper room of King Eglon's palace. And Ehud leans in and he's like, "Hey, I have a message from God. And God wants me to tell you this." And he reaches across his body and he grabs the short sword from under his garments. And it says he plunges it deep into the belly of King Eglon. So deep, in fact, that his fatness, it just his hand just goes into his belly, and he buries this short sword there, pretty gruesome, and he leaves it there. And it says his fat closed over the sword. That's how fat he was. And then Ehud was like, "Oh man, I got to get out of here." So he calmly exits the room, locks the door behind him, and he's able to escape. And then Eglon's authorities come back, they find the door locked, and they're like, "Oh, I guess he's changing his clothes, whatever." Ultimately, they find him dead, and it creates an uproar, but by then it's too late. Ehud has already gone back to the people and says, "Hey, check it out. This is what I did. God is delivering the Moabites to you, and let's go." And so he goes, he takes the people, and they overcome the Moabites. All right, so in this, we see the cycle, right? God has already redeemed Israel under Othniel, and then Israel regresses. He rescues them now with Ehud. Ehud is a warrior, he's a thinker, he's cunning, And and so we're going to see this cycle repeat, this pattern of praise and thanksgiving, and then rebellion and removal of blessings, and then restoration under these various judges. So what do we learn from Ehud? Well, we learn to be thinking people. We learn to be people who listen for God's call, and we learn courage to overcome our fears, to be able to do things that are a little bit scary. And that means, in this context, liberating people. And sometimes in order to liberate people, before you just rush out and do something rash, you have to be a thinking person. You have to think through a plan, be diligent in coming up with a strategy that is going to be as successful as possible. And then, of course, there comes a willingness and a risk. Ehud could have been found out. What if they found the short sword attached to his thigh? What if he was discovered? He could have been murdered. He could have been killed for his efforts. So there was definitely some risk involved and some cunning. And we can learn from that too. Sometimes we have to step out of our comfort zones and go beyond our own self-imposed limitations to take some risks to be able to achieve greater things for God. And sometimes that means, taking on some risk to ourselves and maybe to our families. Certainly, disrupting the status quo. But that's what we can learn. Be listening people. Be listening for how God can use us. Answer the call with courage. Think about a plan and how God is calling us to do something, and take a risk. And so that's what I float along to you today for you to consider. And tomorrow, who are we going to be studying? Tomorrow we will study Shamgar as the third judge of Israel. Hope you've enjoyed it. If you have any questions, let me know. See you guys tomorrow. Love you. Bye.